What if I told you that Prince William has finally done the unthinkable? He has taken his own brother, Prince Harry, to the battlefield not of words, not of interviews, but of law. Yes, you heard that right. For years, we've watched this saga unfold like a slow-burning drama, with moments of heartbreak, betrayal, and scandal. But now, William has chosen the nuclear option. He has launched legal action, and this time, the stakes are not whispers in the tabloids or family quarrels behind palace doors. This time, the very question of Harry's right to call himself the Duke of Sussex is on the line. And if William wins, Harry could be left stripped of the title that once symbolized his place in the monarchy. Can you imagine the humiliation? Can you imagine the fallout? Let's pause here for a moment. Because the real question isn't simply, why now? It's, what pushed William over the edge? Was it the memoir, Spare, that cut deeper than anyone outside the palace walls could ever truly grasp? Was it the Netflix deals, the podcasts, the endless interviews that painted the royal family not as protectors of tradition, but as villains in Harry's personal story? Or was it something far more secret, something so threatening to the monarchy's very survival that William had no choice but to act? The truth, as we'll uncover, may shock you. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Picture this, a brother raised from birth to carry the weight of the crown, every step of his life scrutinized, every word measured, every mistake magnified. And then picture his younger brother, free-spirited, rebellious, the spare, who could walk away, reinvent himself, play the hero in a narrative outside the palace gates. For a time, it seemed manageable, almost tolerable. But when Harry decided to weaponize his story, to cast the monarchy in the role of villain, to publicly accuse and defy the very protocols that uphold its fragile existence, William reached a breaking point. This wasn't just about family. This was about the crown. Think about it. The monarchy thrives on mystique, on continuity, on respect for protocol. The Duke of Sussex title isn't just ceremonial fluff. It's a crown jewel in the branding of royalty. It ties Harry directly to the heart of the United Kingdom, to centuries of history and tradition. And yet here was Harry, leveraging that very title for commercial gain, speaking against the institution that bestowed it, using it as a platform to stand shoulder to shoulder with Hollywood elites while turning his back on Buckingham Palace. For William, that wasn't just betrayal, it was desecration. Now, why does this matter right now? Because the monarchy is at a crossroads. King Charles is aging. The institution faces questions of relevance in a modern world, and the scandals of recent years have left cracks in the crown's carefully polished facade. At a time when stability is paramount, Harry's continued antics, amplified by Meghan Markle's influence, threaten to pull at those cracks until the whole structure begins to crumble. William knows this. He sees himself not just as a brother betrayed, but as a future king under siege. And let's not forget the British public. For every supporter who claps for Harry's bravery, there are millions who feel betrayed, insulted, and disgusted by what they perceive as his abandonment of duty. Poll after poll has shown his popularity plummet in the UK. William, by taking legal action, is sending a signal, not just to Harry, but to the people. He is saying, I will protect this institution. I will not allow the crown to be mocked, degraded, or commercialized by one of its own. And in doing so, he places himself firmly in the role of defender, a role the British public desperately wants him to embody. But make no mistake, this is not without risk. Because taking Harry to court opens doors the palace has long fought to keep shut. Imagine the discovery process, the possibility of evidence spilling into the public domain, of secrets whispered in private rooms suddenly becoming part of public record. Imagine Meghan seizing the stage again, framing this as yet another act of persecution, another attempt to silence and punish Harry for daring to step away. The narrative war would rage hotter than ever. And yet William, knowing all of this, still chose to act. Why? Because the cost of doing nothing had finally become too high. What exactly does legal action mean in this context? We're not just talking about a lawsuit over money or defamation. We're talking about William formally petitioning for Harry to be stripped of his Duke of Sussex title. Think about that for a moment. That's not just a legal move, it's a symbolic execution. It's the monarchy saying, you no longer belong to us. You no longer carry our name. It's a scarlet letter, a public branding of exile that would follow Harry forever. Now let's zoom in even closer. Imagine the atmosphere behind the palace walls as this decision was made. Advisors whispering about precedent, lawyers poring over centuries-old documents, courtiers weighing the political consequences. Some urging caution, others demanding boldness. And at the center of it all, William, torn between blood and duty, between love for a brother and loyalty to the crown. Can you imagine the emotional toll? The sleepless nights? The agony of knowing that every step he took would either save the monarchy or divide it forever. And yet, this isn't the first time titles have been stripped in royal history. Think of the Duke of Windsor, who gave up the throne for love and spent the rest of his life as a shadow of what he could have been. That story ended in exile, bitterness, and regret. Could Harry's fate follow the same tragic arc? Or could it be worse, in a world where every scandal goes viral, where every humiliation is amplified 1,000 times across social media? Here's where it gets even more interesting. Because insiders say that William isn't just acting out of anger, he's acting out of fear. Fear of what Harry and Meghan still hold. Rumors swirl of secret recordings, private letters, explosive evidence that could damage the monarchy in ways we can barely imagine. And yet, William chose to strike anyway. Does that mean he knows something we don't? Does it mean he's already neutralized the threat? Or does it mean he's willing to gamble everything, even the crown's deepest secrets, in order to make an example out of his brother? Ask yourself this. If you were in William's shoes, what would you do? Would you protect your brother at the expense of your kingdom? Or would you sacrifice your brother to save the kingdom? There are no easy answers here. But William has made his choice. And that choice will shape not only his reign, but the very future of the monarchy. And so, we find ourselves standing at the edge of a cliff. On one side, Harry, clinging to his title, his platform, his fragile sense of royal identity. On the other side, William, wielding the law, the institution, the very weight of the crown itself. The brothers who once walked side by side behind their mother's coffin are now locked in a battle that could destroy their bond forever. But here's the twist. This legal action, as dramatic as it is, may not be the end. In fact, it may only be the beginning. Because what William has unleashed could trigger a chain reaction of revelations, confrontations, and consequences that neither brother is prepared to face. And that leads us to the real question. What comes next? Because if you thought the legal filing was shocking, wait until you see the evidence that William plans to bring forward. Wait until you hear the whispers of hidden documents, of secret communications, of betrayals that have never before seen the light of day. And when those truths finally come out, they won't just decide Harry's fate. They could decide the fate of the monarchy itself. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. This wasn't the first betrayal. But for Prince William, it may very well have been the last straw. Imagine the years of mounting frustration, quiet dinners where Harry's absence spoke louder than any words, public ceremonies where the empty space beside William stood as a glaring reminder of the rift, interviews across the Atlantic where Harry's voice pierced the dignity of the monarchy like a dagger. William had endured it all, gritting his teeth, clinging to patience, hoping his brother would one day come to his senses. But patience has limits, even for a future king. And this was the moment William reached his breaking point. The cracks didn't appear overnight. They were decades in the making. From their earliest days, William and Harry were a study in contrast. William, steady, restrained, conscious of the destiny that loomed before him. Harry, spirited, impulsive, forever branded as the spare, a label that both shielded him from the crushing weight of the throne and simultaneously wounded him with a sense of disposability. For years, that dynamic simmered quietly beneath the surface. But what happens when the spare decides he's no longer content to live in the shadow of the heir? Ask yourself, how long can a monarchy survive when one of its own wages war against it from within? This is the question William was forced to confront. Let's rewind to the infamous Oprah interview. Millions tuned in as Harry and Meghan sat beneath California's sunshine and unleashed a storm that rattled Buckingham Palace to its core. Accusations of racism, emotional neglect, and betrayal filled the airwaves. To the public, it was a bombshell. To William, it was something far worse. It was personal treason. Those weren't just grievances. They were daggers pointed at the heart of the family and the institution he had sworn to protect. For William, this was no longer about petty sibling rivalry. This was about honor. This was about the monarchy's survival. But William didn't strike then. Not yet. He hoped time would cool tempers, that distance might soften hearts. Instead, the fire spread. A Netflix docuseries followed. Then Harry's memoir, Spare, hit the shelves like a thunderclap. Page after page painted William not as a brother, but as a bully, an aggressor, a man consumed by the weight of his crown. Harry revealed private conversations, intimate moments, and even physical altercations, turning the sacred trust of brotherhood into fodder for profit. Can you imagine William's fury? For years, he had kept his silence, refusing to air grievances in public, believing dignity was his shield. And now, here was his brother, splashing their darkest moments across the world stage. That wasn't just betrayal, it was desecration. And yet, even then, William did not unleash the lawyers. He remained stoic, as the palace's mantra has long dictated. Never complain, never explain. But something changed in the months that followed. Something darker, something heavier. What was it? Was it the whispers that Harry and Meghan were preparing yet another media blitz? Was it private intelligence that suggested Harry's actions were crossing into outright defiance of royal protocol? Or was it the realization that silence had become weakness, and weakness had become danger? This brings us to the breaking point. Insiders whisper that a particular event, a seemingly small but deeply symbolic act, pushed William from patience to fury. Harry had reportedly leveraged his royal title in ways that blurred the line between privilege and exploitation, attaching the dignity of the crown to commercial projects designed to enrich himself and Meghan. To William, this was more than disrespect. It was corruption, and corruption, unchecked, spreads like poison. Picture William at Kensington Palace, pacing through halls lined with portraits of ancestors who bore the weight of kingship. Imagine the conflict within him. The brother who once laughed with Harry over childhood mischief now standing in judgment over him. How do you weigh blood against duty? How do you reconcile love with loyalty to something larger than yourself? For William, the answer crystallized with painful clarity. You choose the crown. And so, the heir made a choice his mother might never have envisioned, a choice his father might have delayed, a choice the world could scarcely believe. He chose to take legal action. But let's not oversimplify. This wasn't just about one brother suing another. This was about the heir to the throne stepping into the role of protector, drawing a line in the sand not just for Harry, but for the entire monarchy. This was William saying, no more. This ends here. The irony is staggering. Once, the world mourned them as two boys walking side by side behind Princess Diana's coffin, united in grief, bound by tragedy. That image captured the hearts of millions. And yet, decades later, they find themselves on opposite ends of a courtroom, locked in a battle that threatens to erase whatever bond still lingers between them. Do you see the contradiction? The monarchy thrives on unity, yet here are its princes locked in war. How can the crown claim stability when its very heirs embody division? And yet, perhaps William believes the opposite is true, that only by cutting Harry loose, by stripping him of the Sussex title, can the monarchy regain its footing. But here's the cruel twist. Harry, for all his rebellion, still clings to that title. Without it, he risks becoming ordinary, a man adrift in Hollywood without the gravitas of royal blood to anchor him. For William, that may be precisely the point. For Harry, it's a nightmare he cannot allow. And so, the stage is set for a confrontation unlike anything we've seen in modern royal history. And let me ask you, what happens when private pain becomes public litigation? When whispered grievances become sworn testimonies? When family drama becomes legal precedent? That's what we're about to find out. Because this chapter, The Breaking Point, isn't just about William's decision to act. It's about the tidal wave that decision unleashed. Courtrooms don't operate on silence. They demand evidence. They demand witnesses. They demand truth, even when that truth shatters carefully constructed illusions. And if William's legal filing was the spark, what came next was the wildfire. But the story doesn't end here. Because as William set his legal wheels in motion, another question emerged, one even more dangerous than the lawsuit itself. What secrets would be revealed once the legal path was unveiled? And what evidence did William have that gave him the confidence to strike at his brother in so public, so irreversible a way? The answer to that question lies ahead. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The headline screamed it. Prince William launches legal action against Prince Harry. A phrase no one thought they would ever read. Not the tabloids, not the broadsheets, not even the gossip blogs that thrive on scandal. It was unthinkable. Royals do not take each other to court. Royals settle their disputes behind gilded doors, in hushed tones, with courtiers smoothing over the cracks. Yet here we were. For the first time in living memory, the heir to the throne had chosen the legal battlefield. And the question that haunted everyone's lips was simple. Why now? And why in such a public way? Legal action, in this context, isn't just a formality. It's a declaration of war. The monarchy thrives on mystique, on the illusion of unity, on the power of silence. By dragging Harry into legal proceedings, William shattered that illusion, choosing exposure over secrecy. Was this boldness or desperation? That depends on who you ask. But one thing is undeniable. William believes he holds the winning hand. Let's peel this back. What exactly does legal action mean in royal terms? Unlike ordinary citizens, royals aren't often seen filing suits. But William's move zeroed in on something unique. Harry's title, the Duke of Sussex. The claim? That Harry had violated the dignity of the crown by misusing and dishonoring his title. That he had breached royal protocols, turning a symbol of service into a commercial tool, and in doing so, had insulted not just the institution but the nation it represents. Think about that for a second. Titles are not just honorifics. They are instruments of power, branding, and influence. They connect a person to centuries of tradition and to the very identity of the monarchy. To strip one away is no small matter. It is to say, you are no longer one of us. And that is precisely what William was seeking. Now imagine the panic this triggered behind palace walls. Legal advisors rushed to comb through centuries-old precedent. Could this be done? Under what grounds? What had been done in the past? The answer shocked many. Yes, titles had been revoked before. The most infamous case was the Duke of Windsor, King Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne for Wallis Simpson. His titles were stripped, his reputation forever marred, his legacy written as one of betrayal. To many, Harry's behavior began to echo that story. To William, it may have felt like history threatening to repeat itself. But here's where things get even more interesting. Legal action isn't just about paperwork and arguments. It's about evidence. And William's legal team reportedly came prepared. Sources whispered of documents, recordings, and communications that painted Harry's behavior not merely as reckless, but as systematically damaging to the monarchy's credibility. Imagine, for a moment, what might be sitting in those files. Emails, contracts, agreements where Harry's royal title was leveraged for money, influence, or celebrity. Imagine the weight of that in a courtroom, not just as gossip, but as legal fact. And think of the pressure on Harry. Suddenly, this wasn't just about fighting with William over hurt feelings or media narratives. This was about defending himself in a legal arena where every misstep could mean permanent consequences. He would need lawyers, advisors, strategists, and still, he would face a near-impossible task, proving that he had not tarnished the title that had opened so many doors for him. Now, here's where the real drama lies. By opening the legal path, William wasn't just confronting Harry. He was confronting Meghan, too. Because in so many of Harry's endeavors, Meghan's influence looms large. Would she be called into the proceedings? Would her emails, her business dealings, her conversations be dragged into the light? For William, that may have been part of the plan. For Meghan, it was likely the nightmare scenario. And let's not forget the palace itself. Traditionally, the firm avoids courts at all costs. The reason is simple. Courts expose. They strip away privacy. They drag secrets into the open. For William to willingly risk this means he believed the danger of silence outweighed the danger of exposure. That is a staggering gamble. What secrets might come out in such a case? Letters? Family disputes? Financial dealings? The public may soon know. The world's media erupted. British tabloids hailed William as a defender of tradition. American outlets painted Harry as a victim of an outdated system. Social media split down the middle. Hashtags like hashtag Team William and hashtag Justice for Harry trended side by side. Suddenly, the monarchy wasn't just a British issue. It was a global spectacle. But beneath the noise, something deeper stirred. Because the legal path William unveiled wasn't just about stripping a title. It was about testing the strength of the monarchy itself. Could it survive such public fratricide? Could it maintain dignity while brothers turned against each other in a court of law? Or would this lawsuit expose cracks so deep that no crown could cover them? Now pause for a moment. If William succeeds, Harry loses not just a title but a shield. He becomes plain Prince Harry, a man with royal blood but no official role, no dukedom to anchor him. But if Harry wins, the damage may be even greater. It would prove that the monarchy could not silence him, that William's strike had failed, that the future king's judgment had been flawed. Either way, the crown bleeds. And that's why this moment, the unveiling of the legal path, is so seismic. Because it forces the monarchy into the spotlight in a way it cannot control. Because it drags personal betrayal into public record. Because it risks transforming brotherly rivalry into constitutional crisis. Ask yourself, would you take your own sibling to court if it meant protecting your life's duty? Would you risk airing your family's darkest secrets if it meant preserving the institution you were born to defend? That's the impossible choice William has made. But as bold as this move was, it was only the opening act. Because once the legal path was set in motion, something far more shocking emerged. Evidence. Evidence that William had prepared, hidden, waiting like a sword to be drawn at the perfect moment. And when that evidence surfaced, it wasn't just Harry who felt the blow. It sent ripples through the entire monarchy, shaking even King Charles to his core. What was in that evidence? Who uncovered it? And why did it terrify the palace as much as it humiliated Harry? But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Titles. They sound harmless, don't they? Just words before a name, elegant flourishes passed down through centuries. But in the monarchy, titles are weapons. They carry power, prestige, and a kind of invisible currency that can open doors or close them forever. And at the center of this storm lies one title in particular, Duke of Sussex. This is not a trivial matter. The title of Duke of Sussex was bestowed upon Harry by Queen Elizabeth II on the day of his wedding. It was meant to honor him, to give him and his new wife Meghan a place within the royal hierarchy, a foundation upon which to serve the crown and the nation. But fast forward a few short years, and that title has become one of the most controversial in modern royal history. Why? Because William believes Harry has turned it into something it was never meant to be, a brand, a bargaining chip, a weapon against the very institution that gave it to him. Ask yourself, what does it mean when a duke no longer serves his duchy, his country, or his crown? What does it mean when the prestige of Sussex is attached not to charity, duty, and service, but to commercial deals, Hollywood premieres, and tell-all interviews? For William, this isn't just embarrassing, it's unacceptable. The monarchy depends on symbols, crowns, coats of arms, processions, and yes, titles. They are not just decorative. They are the glue that holds together the narrative of continuity, duty, and legitimacy. Strip away the symbols, and the monarchy becomes just another family with wealth and privilege. The Duke of Sussex title, in William's eyes, was supposed to be a symbol of unity and service. Instead, it became a symbol of defiance and division. Now here's where the legal case grows sharp. William's argument rests not only on emotional grounds, but on constitutional ones. Royal titles are not simply gifts. They are held in trust, contingent upon loyalty to the crown. They come with expectations, rules, and protocols. By allegedly violating those protocols, by speaking out against the family, by exploiting the title for personal profit, by disregarding the crown's dignity, Harry has, according to William, forfeited the right to keep it. Let's be clear, this is no ordinary family squabble. This is the heir to the throne essentially saying, you broke the rules. You dishonored the system. Now you pay the price. And that price could be devastating. Without the Duke of Sussex title, Harry becomes a prince without a dukedom, a man whose royal identity is drastically diminished. Meghan would lose her status as Duchess of Sussex. Their children, Archie and Lilibet, would find their lineage complicated in ways that could echo for generations. Think about it. What would Prince Harry, Duke of Nothing, look like in the public imagination? How would that shift his power in the media, in politics, in celebrity circles? A title is more than a word. It is an aura. Strip it away, and the aura fades. That, in William's view, is the ultimate accountability. But Harry won't let that happen quietly. He sees the title as his last tether to the monarchy, his shield against irrelevance. Without it, he risks becoming just another celebrity in California, one with diminishing influence and no royal gravitas to back him up. For Meghan, the loss would be equally damaging. She has built her brand around the Duchess identity, leveraging the prestige of royalty while simultaneously critiquing it. To lose it would be to lose half of the allure that made the world pay attention. And so, the courtroom drama isn't just about legality, it's about survival. William is fighting for the monarchy's honor. Harry is fighting for his identity. Two brothers, two visions of what it means to carry a title, colliding with the force of history itself. But here's where it gets darker. Because in building his case, William's legal team didn't stop at protocols and precedents. They unearthed examples of how Harry allegedly exploited the Sussex title in ways that stunned even seasoned insiders. Partnerships where the Duke's status was the selling point. Contracts where the royal name was central to the deal. Appearances where the allure of nobility translated directly into dollars. If proven, these examples would shred Harry's defense, showing not just poor judgment, but calculated misuse. Imagine the evidence laid bare before the court: emails, signatures, correspondence tying Harry's royal identity to business ventures. Imagine the public reaction, the outrage, the headlines. For William, this is not just about winning a case. It's about rewriting the narrative, recasting Harry not as a victim of the crown, but as a profiteer who betrayed it. And history lends William weight, because Harry wouldn't be the first royal stripped of grandeur. King Edward VIII's transformation into the Duke of Windsor set a precedent. Betray the crown, and the crown strips you bare. Lesser-known royals have also lost titles for dishonor, scandal, or political defiance. The monarchy may appear forgiving on the surface, but beneath the velvet lies iron. Still, let's not ignore the human side. This is a brother trying to destroy another brother's standing in the world. This is not cold legal maneuvering. It's emotional warfare wrapped in constitutional arguments. Can you imagine the pain, the resentment, the fury? One wonders whether William sees Harry across the courtroom as the boy he once adored or as the enemy who must be neutralized to protect the throne. The public watches with bated breath. Some cry out, "Yes, strip him. He deserves nothing after what he's done." Others plead, "No, this is cruel. This is vindictive. This is the monarchy eating itself alive." And in between lies a truth both tragic and undeniable. There is no outcome that doesn't scar them all. Because if William wins, Harry is humiliated. If Harry wins, William is weakened. And the monarchy, regardless of the verdict, bleeds dignity. But then came something unexpected. Something that twisted the case from a straightforward legal argument into something far murkier, far more dangerous. Because while William sought to frame this as a matter of protocol, whispers began to surface that Meghan herself might be pulled into the fight, not as a supportive wife, but as a central figure whose influence shaped many of Harry's choices. And when Meghan enters the battlefield, everything changes. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Whispers have followed Meghan Markle from the very beginning. Some saw her as a breath of fresh air, a modern woman stepping into a centuries-old institution. Others saw her as a disruptor, a schemer, a force pulling Harry further away from the traditions that once defined him. But now, with William's legal strike against Harry, Meghan's presence looms larger than ever before. Because the truth is this: behind every royal scandal of the last 5 years, Meghan's influence has never been far away. And in William's legal case, that influence may be the sharpest blade of all. Let's start with the obvious. When Harry married Meghan, he didn't just marry an actress from California. He married a woman who understood branding, who knew the power of narrative, who had lived in the world of media where image is currency. For the royal family, titles are sacred. For Meghan, titles could be tools. And that difference in perspective may be the root of this entire storm. Think about it. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex didn't fade quietly into life as private citizens, after stepping back from royal duties. No, they launched multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, Spotify, and publishers, their projects stamped with the prestige of the Sussex name. Charity work blended with commercial ventures. Public appearances blurred the line between duty and celebrity. To William, this wasn't a couple simply making a living. It was a calculated effort to cash in on the crown's dignity. And who, he wondered, masterminded this strategy? Meghan. Ask yourself, would Harry, on his own, have pursued Hollywood partnerships and tell-all interviews? Or was it Meghan, with her sharp eye for media and storytelling, who saw the opportunity? This question now hangs heavily over the legal proceedings. Because if William's lawyers can prove that Meghan's influence directed Harry into exploiting his title, then Harry doesn't stand alone in the dock. Meghan's shadow is right there beside him. But here's where it gets even more explosive. Rumors swirl that Meghan herself could be called to testify. Imagine the scene. Meghan, once hailed as the Duchess who might modernize the monarchy, sitting under oath, her every word scrutinized, her every answer potentially redefining her role in this saga. Can you picture it? The cameras outside, the world waiting, the tension inside the courtroom so thick it could break steel. And it's not just about contracts and business deals. Meghan's alleged role in shaping Harry's public narrative, the interviews, the memoir, the carefully staged revelations, may become a central point in William's argument. Did Meghan encourage Harry to weaponize his royal identity against the monarchy? Did she push him to reveal secrets, to twist the family's private wounds into public drama? These are the questions William's team may dare to raise. Now let's talk optics. Meghan has long styled herself as a victim of the monarchy's coldness, its racism, its antiquated ways. In America, that narrative resonates. She is the woman who walked into the palace and discovered it was less a fairy tale than a gilded cage. But in the UK, the perception is often the reverse. She is the woman who led Harry astray, who tore him from his family, who put ambition above duty. This cultural divide could play out in court as powerfully as any legal argument. And William knows it. By indirectly tying Meghan's influence to Harry's misuse of the Sussex title, William is not only strengthening his case, he is reshaping the battlefield of public opinion. To the British public, it paints Meghan as the puppeteer. To the American audience, it may confirm her status as a woman unfairly scapegoated. Either way, the drama intensifies. But let's not forget the human element. Meghan isn't just an accessory to this case. She's Harry's wife, the mother of his children, his confidant. Imagine the strain this puts on their marriage. Harry, facing the possible loss of his dukedom. Meghan, accused of being the architect of his downfall. What conversations echo behind the walls of their Montecito mansion? What fears? What recriminations? Does Harry blame her for pushing him too far, or does he lean on her as his only ally in a world that feels stacked against him? Now here's the chilling part. Insiders whisper that Meghan may be holding cards of her own. Secret recordings, documents, or testimonies that could embarrass the monarchy if brought to light. Some even claim she has a nuclear option, evidence that, if released, could shake the crown in ways not seen since the abdication crisis of 1936. Could she unleash it if cornered? Could Meghan, in defending Harry, scorch the very earth the monarchy stands on? Picture the courtroom again. William's lawyers unveiling evidence of Meghan's influence, tying her to contracts and deals. Meghan's camp responding with veiled threats of exposure. The monarchy bracing itself for revelations it has fought for decades to bury. This isn't just a legal battle anymore. It's a high-stakes chess match, with Meghan's shadow moving across the board, unpredictable and dangerous. And remember this, Meghan thrives on narrative. Every loss can be reframed as a win. Every attack can be turned into proof of victimhood. If William succeeds in stripping Harry's title, Meghan may not mourn the loss. She may weaponize it. Look what they did to us, she could say. Look at how they silenced us. And in a media-driven world, that narrative could be just as powerful as the title itself. So, ask yourself, is Meghan Harry's greatest ally or his most dangerous liability? Has she empowered him to step into his own, or has she pulled him into a war he cannot win? William's legal case forces us to confront this question head-on. And yet, as dramatic as Meghan's shadow is in this saga, there's another battlefield raging outside the courtroom. one that could sway the outcome more than any legal precedent. Because while the lawyers trade blows, the real war may be fought in the court of public opinion. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The headlines erupted like cannon fire. William versus Harry, a battle for the crown. Sussex is under siege. Royal war goes public. Overnight, the legal drama spilled out of the courtroom and into the streets, the living rooms, and the minds of millions across the globe. And suddenly, it wasn't just about the law anymore. It was about perception. It was about the most powerful battlefield of the 21st century, public opinion. From the moment William's legal action became public, the media frenzy was electric. Tabloids in the UK plastered Harry and Meghan's faces across front pages with words like traitor and disgrace. Royal experts were wheeled out on television, their voices solemn as they warned that the monarchy's very survival was at stake. If William doesn't act, one commentator declared, the crown risks becoming a circus. But across the Atlantic, the story was different. American talk shows and podcasts framed Harry and Meghan as brave rebels, fighting against an archaic system that had chewed them up and spat them out. Two worlds, one story, and the divide couldn't have been starker. Ask yourself, who really holds the power here? The courtroom judge? Or the millions of ordinary people forming judgments in real time, their tweets, their posts, their hashtags shaping the narrative faster than any lawyer could file a brief? On Twitter, now X, the battleground lines were clear. Hashtag Team William trended in the UK, filled with users demanding Harry be stripped of everything. He abandoned us, one tweet read. He insulted his own blood. The Duke of Sussex title belongs to service, not selfishness. In America, hashtag Justice for Harry surged. Fans of the Sussexes rallied to his defense, painting William as cold, power-hungry, and out of touch with modern values. One viral post read, "Imagine being sued by your brother just for telling the truth about your trauma." Thousands agreed. And then there were the memes. William in judge's robes, gavel in hand. Harry photoshopped as a fallen knight, his crown rolling away. Meghan depicted as a chess master pulling strings. The humor masked a darker truth. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. This was entertainment, politics, and morality play all wrapped into one, and the world was hooked. Now, let's not underestimate the role of polling. A secret Palace Commission poll reportedly revealed something that shocked even William. While the British public largely supported him, nearly 68% backing the idea of stripping Harry's dukedom, there was a troubling undercurrent. Nearly half of those under 35 sided with Harry. Think about that. The future generation, the very demographic the monarchy needs to survive, was slipping through William's fingers. They saw Harry not as a villain, but as a victim. That revelation sent shockwaves through the palace halls. William may have had the law on his side, but the war for the next generation's loyalty? That was far from certain, and Meghan knew it. While William's lawyers argued protocols and precedents, Meghan quietly leaned into her strength, storytelling. Carefully timed leaks to friendly American media painted her and Harry as harassed, bullied, singled out by an institution afraid of change. Celebrity allies amplified the message. Oprah, Tyler Perry, even some Hollywood actors began dropping cryptic posts of support. The Sussexes, stripped of their titles or not, still had a megaphone louder than most nations' governments. Meanwhile, in Britain, royal loyalists grew angrier. Crowds outside Buckingham Palace held signs reading, "Protect the Crown" and "No Sussex Betrayal." Pro-monarchy commentators demanded swift and decisive punishment. If Harry keeps his title, one fiery editorial declared, it will prove the monarchy has no backbone. The divide deepened, the language sharpened, and every passing day the brothers' legal battle morphed into a global referendum on monarchy itself. Let's not forget the Commonwealth. In Canada, Australia, and the Caribbean nations, commentators asked whether this feud wasn't just about family, but about the very relevance of the crown. If the royals can't keep their own house in order, one Australian columnist wrote, why should they reign over ours? Suddenly, William's case against Harry wasn't just domestic, it was international. Now imagine the tension behind palace walls. William knew he was winning legally, but losing ground with younger hearts and minds. Advisors urged him to tread carefully, to present himself not as a vengeful brother, but as a protector of tradition, as the steady hand the monarchy needed. Every appearance became a calculated move. Every speech weighed not just for content, but for optics. One wrong word, one slip of anger, could tip the scales of public opinion against him. And Harry? He thrived on the publicity. Even as his lawyers scrambled to mount a defense, Harry leaned into the role of underdog. "They want to silence me," he reportedly told a confidant. "They can strip my title, but they can't strip my truth." Those words leaked, went viral, and became a rallying cry for his supporters. The more William fought in court, the more Harry fought in hearts. But here's where the twist comes. Just when the narrative seemed predictable, William as the establishment's defender, Harry as the rebellious victim, rumors emerged of something neither side wanted exposed. A private poll, hidden deep within government channels, allegedly suggested that if Harry lost his dukedom, support for abolishing the monarchy altogether would rise sharply. Imagine that. In trying to save the institution, William might accidentally weaken it further. Can you see the paradox? William's legal case, meant to protect the crown, risked becoming the spark that fueled Republican movements worldwide. Harry, stripped of power, could still bring the monarchy to its knees, not with a sword, but with sympathy. And as public opinion swirled, as hashtags clashed, as polls rose and fell like tides, one truth became clear. This wasn't just a legal battle. This was a media war, and both sides were willing to burn the world's attention as fuel. But then came a silence. A deliberate, calculated silence from one man who had the power to tip the scales completely. King Charles. His absence, his refusal to speak, became deafening. And when he finally broke that silence, it wasn't what anyone expected. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Silence can be louder than words. And in the middle of the storm that ripped through the monarchy, King Charles chose silence. Not a word from Buckingham Palace. Not a carefully drafted statement from courtiers. Not even the customary sources close to the king, whispering through the press. Nothing. And in that silence, speculation ran wild. Why did Charles refuse to step in? Was it indifference, strategy, or paralysis? The world wanted answers, but the king gave none. And as the lawsuits and headlines piled up, his silence became the most haunting sound of all. Let's rewind. Charles has always walked a tightrope when it comes to his sons. On one side, William, the heir, the steady hand, the man being groomed for kingship since birth. On the other, Harry, the son who carried his mother's fiery spirit, the one who laughed louder, broke rules quicker, and loved with reckless abandon. Diana's death bound them together in grief, but Charles often stood awkwardly in the background, struggling to connect with two boys who had lost their guiding star. That distance never really healed, and now, decades later, it sits at the core of the crisis. Behind palace gates, insiders say Charles wrestled with an impossible dilemma. If he supported William openly, he risked looking like a father who abandoned one son to crush the other. If he defended Harry, he risked undermining the heir he spent a lifetime preparing. Every option was poison. Every word could be weaponized. So Charles chose the only path he thought safe: silence. But silence is rarely safe. In Britain, commentators filled the void with fury. "The king must speak," demanded one headline. "The monarchy cannot sit on the fence while its very fabric is shredded." Others accused him of weakness. "Charles dithers while his sons destroy each other," an editorial scoffed. And yet, for all the criticism, Charles remained quiet, retreating behind the palace walls. Meanwhile, whispers grew louder. Some insiders claimed Charles privately leaned toward William's side, that he quietly approved of the legal strategy, that he too believed Harry had dishonored the crown. Others suggested the opposite, that Charles longed for reconciliation, that he saw William's move as too severe, too final, and that his silence masked frantic behind-the-scenes efforts to broker peace. Which was the truth? No one knew, and the not knowing fueled the fire. Now imagine the family dinners, or rather, the absence of them. Charles sitting at one end of the long Buckingham Palace table, his thoughts heavy with the weight of history. William, steely, determined, his legal team at the ready. Harry, thousands of miles away, his face flashing across screens, his anger sharp, his words cutting. The father caught between them, torn between his duty as king and his instincts as a parent. Which role wins? Which role survives? Ask yourself, if you were Charles, what would you do? Would you protect the monarchy at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing your son? Or would you fight for family, knowing it could weaken the crown? That is the torment Charles faces. And then came the rumors that shook even the palace staff. Allegedly, Charles received a private letter from Harry, a plea, perhaps, or a warning. Some say it was conciliatory, begging his father not to let William go through with the case. Others claim it was defiant, warning of secrets that could erupt if Harry were stripped of his title. The letter has never been seen, never confirmed. But its existence became part of the lore, another mystery in the king's silence. Meanwhile, the public grew restless. Outside Buckingham Palace, protesters gathered, some waving Union Jacks demanding Harry's punishment, others holding signs declaring, "Charles, speak now." The monarch who had waited a lifetime for the throne suddenly seemed invisible, absent when his kingdom needed him most. But was it truly absence? Or was it strategy? Some analysts suggested Charles was biding his time, letting William and Harry burn themselves out, knowing that stepping in too soon could make matters worse. Others insisted Charles was gambling with fire, hoping silence would cool tempers, but instead letting rage consume everything. And then came the twist. After weeks of silence, Charles made a move, but not the one anyone predicted. Instead of addressing the feud directly, he announced a new initiative, a royal summit on the future of the monarchy, inviting senior royals to discuss its long-term role in a changing world. On the surface, it looked innocuous, but insiders knew what it meant. Charles was signaling that the monarchy's survival mattered more than the feud. He was preparing for life without Harry, with or without the Sussex title. To some, this was a masterstroke. To others, it was cowardice disguised as strategy. But one thing was clear. Charles was no longer waiting for reconciliation. He was preparing for war. And yet, as his summit loomed, another question burned in every headline, every podcast, every conversation. Would Charles eventually take a side? Because in the end, silence cannot last forever. And when the king finally chooses, his decision won't just change the fate of his sons. It will change the fate of the crown. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Rules. That is what the monarchy is built on. Centuries of rules, some written into law, others etched into tradition, all designed to protect the crown from scandal, corruption, and decay. These protocols are the lifeblood of the monarchy, invisible walls holding back chaos. And yet, if you believe William's legal argument, Prince Harry bulldozed straight through them. This isn't about petty slights. This isn't about a brotherly spat. William's lawyers claim Harry violated some of the most sacred codes of conduct ever created for the royal family, rules designed not just to guide behavior, but to protect the very survival of the crown. And when you examine them closely, the picture that emerges is damning. Let's begin with the cornerstone. Political neutrality. For generations, royals have been forbidden from engaging in overt political debate. They cannot endorse candidates, they cannot push partisan agendas, and they cannot weaponize their titles in political arenas. Yet Harry, freed by distance and emboldened by Meghan, spoke openly about American elections. He urged people to reject hate speech, made pointed comments about democracy, and appeared to dance dangerously close to endorsing one side over the other. To William, this wasn't harmless rhetoric, it was a catastrophic breach. Why? Because the monarchy survives only if it is seen as above politics. Once a royal takes sides, the crown itself becomes vulnerable. Then there's the matter of commerce. Royals are not celebrities. They are not supposed to leverage their titles to sign multi-million-dollar entertainment deals. But Harry and Meghan inked contracts with Netflix and Spotify worth staggering sums. Contracts that, critics argue, would not exist without the Sussex title attached to them. Think about it. Would Hollywood executives pay such figures for a memoir, a podcast, or a docuseries if it were just Harry Windsor and Meghan Markle signing on the dotted line? Unlikely. For William, this was exploitation of the crown's dignity, pure and simple. And it doesn't stop there. There are protocols around privacy, about what should remain sacred within the family. Harry shattered those with spare, revealing not only private conversations but intimate altercations, portraying William, Kate, and even Camilla in unflattering, sometimes humiliating detail. To the public, it made for juicy headlines. To the monarchy, it was betrayal at the highest level. Royals are trained from birth to never complain, never explain. Harry not only complained, he explained in excruciating detail, turning palace corridors into public battlegrounds. Now, let's add another layer: security. Royals are expected to maintain discretion when it comes to the details of their protection and the vulnerabilities of the family. Yet Harry openly discussed his struggles with royal security, painting himself and his family as targets and raising uncomfortable questions about the monarchy's ability to protect its own. Again, to William, this wasn't transparency, it was recklessness. So ask yourself, are these minor missteps, or are they seismic violations of the code that has held the monarchy together for centuries? For William, the answer is obvious. Every breach was another crack in the crown. Every protocol shattered brought the monarchy one step closer to collapse. And for a future king who sees himself as guardian of the institution, allowing his brother to continue unchecked was unthinkable. But here's where things get chilling. William's legal team reportedly compiled a dossier, a thick stack of evidence cataloging Harry's breaches one by one. Public comments, business contracts, media appearances, each entry a nail in the coffin of Harry's dukedom. Insiders whisper this file is devastating, a record of misconduct so detailed it could annihilate Harry's defense in one blow. Can you picture it? Lawyers placing the dossier on a courtroom table with a heavy thud, each page tearing away Harry's credibility. And yet, among these breaches, one stood out as the most dangerous of all. One so damaging, so corrosive, that even seasoned palace insiders reportedly blanched when they read it. A protocol not just broken, but obliterated. What could it be? Was it a private deal exposed? A communication leaked? A recording Meghan may have encouraged Harry to keep? The whispers are vague, but the fear they carry is real. Now here's the paradox. The more William builds his case on these protocol breaches, the more Harry is forced into a corner. Because to defend himself, Harry must admit one of two things. Either he broke the rules knowingly, or he rejects the rules themselves as archaic relics. Either way, he loses. Admit guilt, and the case is sealed. Deny the validity of the rules, and he alienates the very crown he still clings to for identity. It is a trap, one William has set with cold precision. And yet, what happens if the breaches William exposes don't just damage Harry, but damage the monarchy itself? After all, the protocols are not just Harry's failures. They are proof that the monarchy has cracks, that its rules no longer fit neatly into the modern world. What if the very act of dragging them into the light makes the crown look outdated, hypocritical, or absurd? That's the gamble William is taking. In trying to prove Harry dishonored the monarchy, he risked showing the world just how fragile the monarchy truly is. Can you see the contradiction? William wants to protect the institution, but his case forces it under a microscope. And once the world peers in, who knows what they'll find? And then, just as the dossier was about to be sealed for the court, whispers emerged of a final entry, a hidden breach, one so explosive it wasn't meant for the public eye at all. Something buried, concealed, perhaps even protected for years. And if revealed, it wouldn't just damage Harry. It would send shockwaves through the entire royal family. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Harry finally broke his silence. And when he did, the words cut through the air like glass shattering on marble. After weeks of headlines, legal filings, and whispers of dossiers stacked against him, Harry stepped forward, not as the Duke of Sussex, not as the spare, but as a man cornered, fighting for his survival. His defense stunned even those who thought they knew him best. From the very beginning, Harry framed himself not as the aggressor, but as the victim. He spoke of trauma, of pain, of wounds never healed from childhood. He reminded the world that he was the boy who walked behind his mother's coffin at age 12, the boy who was told to stay silent, to stay strong, while the cameras feasted on his grief. All my life, he declared, the rules were written to protect the institution, not the people within it. And now they want to strip me of my name because I dared to speak the truth. It was a masterstroke of emotional rhetoric. Suddenly, this wasn't about contracts and titles. It was about humanity, about the cost of being royal. Harry turned the courtroom, and the world watching, into his confessional. But was it genuine vulnerability, or a carefully orchestrated strategy designed to tilt the scales of sympathy? That is the question everyone began asking. Let's break down his defense. At its core, Harry argued that the royal protocols William claimed he violated were outdated relics, shackles designed to maintain control, not honor. He insisted that his actions, speaking openly, signing deals, telling his story, were not betrayals, but acts of freedom. I will not be muzzled, he said. I will not live my life as a prisoner of silence. In doing so, he positioned himself not just against William, but against the entire system. And then came the pivot. Harry attacked the very foundation of William's case, the idea that titles belong to the crown, not the individual. The Duke of Sussex is not a piece of property, Harry argued. It is part of who I am. You cannot erase me. You cannot reduce me to nothing simply because I chose to live differently. With those words, he reframed the lawsuit as not about discipline, but about erasure. But here's where things took an even sharper turn. Harry didn't just defend himself. He went on the offensive. He claimed that William, for all his supposed loyalty to the crown, had broken protocols himself. He pointed to moments where William allegedly bent rules for convenience, where palace aides covered his tracks, where double standards were applied. Imagine the gasps in the courtroom. Imagine William's jaw tighten as his own integrity was dragged into the light. Harry wasn't just fighting for his title. He was trying to drag his brother into the mud beside him. And then came Meghan. Harry made it clear that his wife was not the manipulator, not the shadowy influence William's team painted her to be, but his partner, his anchor. Everything I've done with her by my side. She gave me strength when the institution gave me none. It was a line crafted to both defend Meghan and strike at the monarchy's heart. If she was his savior, then the palace, by implication, was his tormentor. Ask yourself, was this brave or reckless? Harry's defense burned bridges as quickly as it built sympathy. For every supporter who cried out, yes, he's telling the truth, there were just as many who saw his words as confirmation of betrayal. A prince who once embodied duty now stood in open rebellion, and the divide grew sharper with every sentence. But Harry wasn't done. He dropped hints, carefully, tantalizingly, of evidence yet unseen. He suggested that if William's team wanted to drag his life into the light, he could do the same. Letters, emails, messages. If we are going to speak of dishonor, he warned, then let us speak of all dishonor, not just mine. It was a veiled threat, one that left even the most seasoned royal observers rattled. Was Harry bluffing, or did he truly hold explosive secrets that could scorch the monarchy to ashes? And here's the irony. In defending himself, Harry may have revealed more than he intended. His insistence on truth, on transparency, on rejecting the rules, it played beautifully in the court of public opinion, especially among younger generations who see him as a rebel against outdated authority. But in the legal court, where facts outweigh feelings, his strategy was far riskier. Sympathy can sway an audience. It cannot always sway a verdict. Still, Harry had made his move. He had cast himself not as the betrayer, but as the betrayed. He had turned the lawsuit into a morality play, with himself as the tragic hero standing against a system too rigid to change. And the world was hooked. But then came William's counterstrike. Because while Harry poured his heart out, William's lawyers reached into their dossier and pulled out something Harry never expected. Evidence so sharp, so undeniable, that it pierced straight through the armor of his defense. And when that evidence hit the courtroom, it didn't just threaten Harry's case. It threatened his entire future. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming.